Laura demands a new car after watching a TikTok push-present trend, sparking major marriage conflict. After 5 years of marriage, my wife, Laura, is currently carrying our child. She emailed me a TikTok video of a woman debating the idea of a push gift on a podcast a few days ago. I originally had no idea what it meant, but when I searched it out, I discovered it's essentially a thank you present to the woman bearing your child. To me, this idea appeared really weird. Although your husband's gratitude for what women go through during pregnancy and childbirth is much sought for, the materialistic element stopped me. The woman on TikTok went on and on about how it's a body for a body, implying that the man should get a permanent tattoo on his lower body, as well as offer her a house and a car as special gifts. Those expectations struck me as rather unreasonable, a little vengeful, and overdone for my taste. Couples make the united decision to bring a child into the world. In our situation, my wife wants to be a parent too. Thus, she was not under pressure to be pregnant. Thinking that would be the end of it, I just answered the TikTok with laughing emojis and went on. I figured she submitted the video as satire, something like, "Oh, look how ridiculous this is." I reacted to the video while she was in the other room. She came to me, saying she wanted me to tap into my own resources to acquire a car specifically for her, even though she does not anticipate a tattoo or an elite house. Almost startled, I looked at her and started giggling, though I knew I was mistaken. My wife and I agreed on how foolish individuals sometimes are. I prodded her to find out whether she was really serious. She grew really agitated and stated she indeed wanted a real push present. Her gift, I reminded her, is the realization of a healthy baby and parenting itself. Materially speaking, I'll probably send her a Mother's Day card, a day off, some jewelry she likes under $700, but nothing more. I pointed out that our automobile, not only hers, will be hers if she truly wants an extra car. She argued it was insufficient given what she would go through. She persisted and inquired as to whether I felt she was unworthy. She is worthy as my partner and the mother of my child, but she also has to be reasonable and realize that neither of us is personally deserving of what she is requesting. She needs to control her expectations, I remarked, since I don't see why she feels qualified for that. It came out wrong, but I meant not to discount her personally. She is crying about the argument right now and is not talking to me. I heard her on the phone berating me to her sister, but under no circumstances would I ever think of giving her a car. She's hurting right now, so I feel guilty, yet I'm not evil for giving her a reality check. My push present was sushi soon after the birth of the small one. I couldn't have any and really craved sushi all during my pregnancy. Not that jerk. I'm expecting, and my spouse is going to present me with birthstone jewelry. I'm also giving him a watch with an engraving. Those TikTok videos ruin relationships. Totally. Once, my sister-in-law almost left my brother-in-law because she wouldn't create her brother-in-law a boo basket for Halloween. Why women need relationship advice from TikTok is beyond me. Relationships are being destroyed at frightening speed on social media. Some background here. I, 37 male, and Nicole, 36, my ex-wife, had met in our mid-20s. We met when I was about 24, and we were employed by the same company. We were married after 2 years of dating, and 3 years into our marriage, we had 2 kids, now 9 and 7 years old. Though I had told her it would be good with me if she did, I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want. Hence, the second pregnancy was unexpected, and she wasn't happy about it. She didn't kill it either. Things were still wonderful between us, and we were as in love as we could have been following our first daughter. After the second pregnancy, though, that changed. She started to get rather irritated, sullen, and started to pick on our eldest or me consistently. Just realizing this was due to all the hormones, I tried to reconcile with this new Nicole. After some time, we believed this would change. Instead, things just became worse. Around her, my daughter and I learned to walk on eggshells. She was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, but I was running everything. After our first child, she had quit her job of her own volition and done all the housework, along with looking after our eldest while I worked, until she fell pregnant for the second time. She claimed she was too weary to take care of our children and the house. Hence, we had to get a maid while she was pregnant. I consented, even though it was only somewhat outside our means, since at the time I wasn't making enough, especially considering Nicole's pregnancy. I wanted not to trouble her too much. After our second daughter was born, I thought she would come back, tending to the house and children throughout the day. Let me also state clearly that I was not among those men who neglected household chores. Though I was tired from working, I did anything I could to help out after returning from my job. I assumed she would take some time to heal after she delivered our younger daughter, but then we would go back to our regular life. Still, several months passed, and she showed no change. She refused to help out around the house and stayed exactly as angry and agitated. She would simply spend all day seated at home watching TV. She hardly engaged in any activities with the children either. She would periodically pay our neighbor to drive them to the park. Though I wouldn't want to come across as hostile, I did feel that way, as I was working day and night while she wouldn't even do the minimum at home. Additionally, proving somewhat costly for me was paying for a maid to do all the cooking, cleaning, and other domestic tasks, along with all the other bills I had to look after. I wanted to preserve money for our daughter's futures. Nicole refused to assist me in any kind, hence, that was practically impossible. After around 6 months following the birth of our younger daughter, I realized we could not continue like this and had to speak with Nicole, knowing this would be a challenging conversation. So, I requested my parents to watch our girls for the day. They agreed. That day, I sat Nicole down and told her I realized she was fatigued with 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to assist me and coordinate with me. I told her that we were finding a maid to be too costly, and I needed her to respect her word and return to at least some of the housework, so we may renegotiate and cut the housekeeper's pay to save some money. She claimed she was too busy watching the children to handle any of the housework, so she turned down the proposal right away. She also advised me to start making more instead of justifying our financial condition by pointing out her guilt. Although I attempted to persuade her I was already doing my best, if we were to make this marriage work, she needed to help too. I also mentioned how, from what I knew, she simply let the children watch television with her for hours while she watched tacky reality TV, neglecting their needs. The housekeeper had remarked this to me casually as well. She flared up and accused me of spying on her through the maid. So I quickly understood that bringing this up was a big mistake. Saying she was done being pushed about by me and forced to do all the labor while I purportedly did nothing except sit at a desk for a few hours each day, she went on a rant against me, claiming I should be the man of the house. She then chastised me for asking her to help and blamed me for not being able to pay a maid, while I was the rational one expecting her to help the house. Her charges were utterly nonsensical, and she was merely grabbing at straws to give the impression that her not doing anything all day was normal. We finally got into a huge argument, and she labeled me a loser, unable to afford to be with a woman like her. Given how terrified our eldest daughter was of her, I responded by accusing her of being a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother. Now she was failing as a wife too. That comment definitely spoke to her, and she pushed me hard. I stumbled, fell back on the coffee table, broke the glass, and hurt myself. I had to be hurried to the ER. She continued to apologize and weep all through, but fortunately, my back was only mildly injured. She had to move out. I told her I no longer trusted her around the children. I couldn't trust her either, as I had no idea when she could lose her fury once more and damage them as well. While Nicole was still living with us, I urged our parents to look after our daughters. She kept protesting for a week, pledging she would never let something like that happen once more, but I couldn't believe her. She begged me to give her another chance. I almost filed for divorce by the conclusion of the week. We decided she would receive therapy and go live with her parents for some period. I would let her move back in with us only once she had been vetted by a medical professional. She was willing to work on it and improve. Thus, clearly something was quite wrong with her since happy individuals do not act that way. I also wanted my girls to have their mother. Hence, I chose not to divorce her just yet and give our marriage another go. While we were living apart, we also began marriage counseling, but ultimately it proved to be ineffective. She turned out to be cheating on me. Nicole was living with her folks when my parents came in to help with my girls. We attended weekly marriage counseling sessions, and for some time, things looked to be improving. Her therapist contacted me as well. She informed me she had postpartum depression, but was improving. Anger problems had been one of her symptoms. She had never had them before, but they became very out of hand when she pushed me. For both of us, that woke us up. This continued for about a year, and around 6 months in, I even let her visit our girls under my direction. It delighted me to watch her gradually returning to her old self. At last, our circumstances seemed better, and we could really make it work. She then abruptly quit showing up for our counseling appointments without giving any reason, though she stopped answering me as well. Given her therapist kept me informed, I knew she was progressing. It did not make sense to me. I persisted in attempting to talk to her for weeks, but she would simply blow me off, claiming she needed some alone time. At last, after almost 3 months of her avoiding me, I paid her a visit at her parents' house. Her parents disliked me and blamed me for her actions. Thus, I hadn't done that previously. They thought I was the one who had driven their daughter insane and produced such behavior. Nicole had advised me it would be better if I skipped seeing her while she was living with them, since it would simply cause more drama, the last thing we wanted. She had been acting aloof and skipping counseling appointments. Hence, I disregarded that guideline and paid them a visit nevertheless. She seemed indifferent even when she did sporadically come up, and I simply could not understand it. She insisted everything was good, whether I tried personally speaking with her on the phone or even by text, but her behavior made it abundantly evident she was hiding something from me. When I arrived at her parents' place, I thought she would be there, but she wasn't. Her parents slammed the door in my face when I asked where she was and said they were not permitted to tell me. I had a nasty feeling about it since I could tell they were loving the circumstances. So, standing before their house, I made the decision to phone Nicole. My paranoia was developing as I tried phoning her several times, but she didn't answer. Desperate, I resolved to try to go inside myself by slipping around the house. Knowing her parents typically kept the kitchen door open, I headed around to the backyard, but I didn't have to travel that far since Nicole was seated on a swing in the backyard. The bad news was that she was making out with a man I didn't know, not alone. That instant is etched in my head as the most terrible event of my life. The man went away as soon as he noticed me, and by the time Nicole looked around, I was already headed back to my car. I was in total shock. Hence, she caught up with me and tried to stop me, but I was not hearing anything she was saying. I shook her off and warned her not to touch me when she tried to grab me. She neglected my warning. Thus, I got in my automobile and headed home. I told my parents I wanted them to hire a lawyer for me and blocked Nicole everywhere as soon as I got home, so she wouldn't have an opportunity to explain. When I paid Nicole's parents a visit, I told them of what I had recently seen. She never contacted me once again until we had to visit the court-appointed mediator for our divorce settlement. By then, I had essentially become a robot, totally shut off emotionally, but driven only for the benefit of my girls. Even when I learned Nicole was signing away her parental rights, I felt nothing. She had decided she wanted to be with the guy, let's call him Brian, who I saw her with instead of with us. He was her friend from childhood. Although they had drifted apart during high school, they got back together when she moved back home with her parents. Apparently, she had developed feelings for him. Her parents apparently encouraged this. Hence, it's likely why they didn't object to her kissing him in their backyard, even though she is a married woman with 2 kids. Apparently, they had always wanted her to wind up with Brian, and they were glad Nicole was at last choosing herself and her own happiness, as if she had ever been capable of doing anything other than that. She wanted to qualify for alimony. Hence, the divorce was a protracted procedure, even though she had been cheating on me. Though it took some time, my attorney and I battled valiantly to ensure she received nothing in the divorce. Since I had been the one paying for everything while she watched TV at home, it was all rightly mine. The divorce was finalized 5 years ago, and we were successful in ensuring she left empty-handed. Though I knew I couldn't break since I had to look after my girls, who had nobody but me, the months I spent handling the divorce were some of the toughest periods I had. I can never enough thank my parents for being there for me. When I balance job and child care, they are quite helpful and supportive. 5 years have gone by, and although at first the divorce seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me, I am glad for it today. Had I not chosen to leave Nicole, I do not see myself where I am right now. Since then, life has given me good treatment in every sense. I am in a far better place. We moved into a larger house since I make more now, and I have no more responsibility for anyone except my girls. Although they live nearby, my parents only pay occasional visits. My daughters are as delighted as could be, and I have friends that love me. All a man needs is that. I am so grateful to the universe that everything is working for me. At least it was, until Nicole reappeared a few days ago. The doorbell rang when the children were at school, and I was ready to head off to work. Nicole was outside, standing with a boy less than 3 or 4 years old at her side. This has to be Nicole's son, I knew. Her standing at my door startled me, and I was still processing it when she started crying. She came here, she informed me, to atone and right things with me. She declared she was at last ready to be a family once more and offer our marriage another shot. She was returning after all these years, eager to give our marriage another try, as if it were up to her to make that choice. It still astounds me. I chose in a short second to shut the door and turn her away since I wanted to avoid whatever this was. I informed her earlier that this was no longer her family. The day she broke off contact with Brian, I had stopped being her husband. She had given up custody of her daughters. Hence, she had no right to speak to us as her family. The divorce was only a legal requirement. I closed the door after saying that and instructed her to go, as I wanted her nowhere close to my property. Though I was very furious and could have cursed her as well, I held back since the small child made me hesitate. For a few minutes after I closed her out, I could hear her crying outside my door. I chose to ignore it. I headed off to work once I confirmed the coast was free. I tried very hard not to think about it, as I couldn't afford to let it happen, and it would only sap my will. I nearly forgot that Nicole had even shown up at my house. But as soon as I got back from work, my parents called me asking why I had sent her away. Nicole had been heartbroken, they told me, having contacted them following my closing of the door on her. Since she was in the process of divorcing Brian and at last had an opportunity to make things right with me, my parents disclosed they were the ones who had provided her my new address and urged her to visit me. They informed me Nicole had contacted them roughly 1 month ago and that this had been under development for some time. My parents thought it was about time I considered my children, since my daughters deserved a mother, and in their view, Nicole was the best mother available. They thus determined she deserved another shot and sent her my address with guidance on what to say to me. I took great offense at them not even asking if I would be comfortable with it. It was not their position to pardon her or determine she deserved another shot. If the children had been home, it may have been quite dangerous, so their pulling of something like this was reckless. They denied that they had made a mistake, even as I corrected them. They claimed they had an equal right to decide what was best for the girls since they had taken care of the kids and aided me during my divorce. They also said they still periodically look after them. They thought it pointless whether or not I wanted to fix things with Nicole since they had influence in the situation as well. Their belief in that seemed ludicrous to me. My daughters are mine, not theirs, at the end of the day. Although I value my parents and will always be appreciative of what they did during the divorce, I do not believe it was their place to let Nicole re-enter my life. We argued a little, but they felt that by not giving Nicole another opportunity, I was the one acting selfishly. They assured me they had done their due research and she was a different woman now, deserving of living with my girls. They claimed it was offensive to consider they would endanger my girls or me. Even when I informed them she had signed her rights away. Being too conceited to realize that my daughters needed their mother, they said I was destroying their life. It has been a couple days now, and I do not believe I was selfish or out of line. I have given this much thought. Update 1. Nicole arrived up to my home with her son approximately a week ago, and lately I learned the truth about her connection with her parents. Since I'm still trying to understand it personally, and I honestly find it so upsetting, not even knowing where to start, how all of them have deceived me without thinking twice is unbelievable. Apparently, my parents had been in communication with Nicole all along. In addition to telling her my new address after the divorce, while I cut her off from my life, they hadn't, since they thought she would visit at some time. They hardly spoke, just once a month perhaps, but that was plenty for me to feel cheated. From after Nicole was handed the divorce papers, Brian had Nicole sign away her rights. He had set her an ultimatum: either keep in contact with her children and battle for custody, therefore leaving him behind, or ditch her family and establish a new life with him. According to my parents, she had had a tough decision. She chose Brian and opted to start a new family with him rather than remain with the one she already knew. Nicole had contacted her parents soon after I filed for divorce to explain her circumstances and request their assistance since she still wanted to keep intimate contact with her children. She said she felt driven into a position by both Brian pushing her to completely forsake her children and me advocating for full custody with supervised visits. Her prospects of obtaining partial custody were low, even if she battled for custody and opposed Brian, because of the circumstances of our divorce and her history of anger management problems. Her time and money seemed wasted fighting for custody should she choose to battle. She had a very real risk of losing Brian and custody of our girls in the end. My parents entered at that point. Nicole visited with them individually and essentially begged them to let her keep contact with our girls. She asked them to be a link between her and the children, thereby helping her out. Nicole understood she would lose any visitation rights when she signed away her parental rights. As their grandparents, My parents intended to take advantage of their visiting rights, though by going behind my back to let Nicole meet our girls, they effectively misled me for years. Saying Nicole's plight resonated with them, they explained their behavior, as they couldn't in good conscience keep a mother apart from her children. Still, stabbing their own son in the rear seemed to have no effect on their conscience at all. They acknowledged that Nicole would be invited over and allowed to spend time with them anytime I left the children off at their place. My parents would pay my daughters toys and candy to be quiet. Hence, they never told me they were seeing their mother. My girls would tell me they played games with their grandparents and their friend anytime I asked what they had done at their grandparents' house. I always assumed they were referring to my parents' real friends whom I already knew, but apparently my parents had told my daughters to call their mother the friend should I ask about their day. Although I couldn't believe my girls had been lying to me, I pardoned them since Nicole and my parents had obviously coerced and threatened them into silence. It's only natural for kids. I asked my daughters whether they had been meeting their mother behind my back once I found the truth out from my parents. They began to cry and informed me they felt they would be punished by God should they say anything, so they were unable to say anything. Nicole and my dad have to have really hammered it into their minds that telling me the truth would have disastrous results. They had been so evasive and covert all along for this reason. For never asking my girls which of their parents' friends they had been seeing, I also felt like a bad father. I never would have known it could have been someone deadly. Simply put, since I am receiving a restraining order against all of them, I am ending this right now. Since my parents emailed me confessing everything following our argument, I already had written evidence. They thought the email would help me to understand Nicole's desperation to be a mother to her daughters while juggling her relationship with Brian. Though all it accomplished was to prove they were all lying to me and I couldn't trust anyone anymore, they believed it would make me forgive everyone involved. Nicole signed away her parental rights and had to sneak about to meet the children like it was a crime, all because Brian wanted her to have no contact with her former family, which is ironic. Originally meant to be her one true love, all of it was for nothing, as they are divorcing though. According to my parents, Brian now wants nothing to do with any of them. They even had a son together. Nicole didn't want to depart since their son had just begun kindergarten and she had started working again. He got a job offer and is leaving in a few months. Their arguments had been getting more intense for some time. 3 months ago, Brian told her he was done and headed off to accept the job. Though all this disclosure did was make me feel as though justice had at last been done, it was meant to make me sorry for Nicole. My attorney has already advised me the petition for restraining orders has been filed. My daughters and I have also had a decent conversation on everything. I warned them they would never see their mother or grandparents once again going forward. They seem good right now, but we are still working through it in therapy since I know this will be challenging for them. For the past 5 years, they most certainly have found it difficult. This ends immediately. Update 2. Hi everyone. I greatly appreciate all the attention and help. I truly appreciate all the wonderful blessings and messages directed towards my girls. Nicole and my parents should show up in court in a few days. They have been issued restraining orders. I have blocked them on every platform. Thus, I have no idea how they feel about any of this. I have also advised friends not to talk to them should they try to get in touch. I have been working from home for the past few days and have added security around my place. I told the school where my girls go. I first wanted not to send the children to school for a few days, but I wanted their education not to suffer as a result. Their teachers are now monitoring them. None save me is permitted to pick them up after school. Things have so far been nice. I hope they will keep away once the restraining orders are issued. Update 3. Hello, here is a brief update, but we obtained restraining orders. Nicole, my parents, and Brian have to keep their distance from me and my girls for the next 5 years, else they will suffer major penalties. The previous time I saw them, they appeared really hostile. Hence, I am maintaining all the security precautions for a period since I want to avoid any risk. Regular family counseling sessions are attended by my daughters and me. I think we will make great progress in the next months. To be honest, we have already advanced really much. Right now, I just want my daughters to be happy. That is all. Kindly keep forwarding us your best wishes. We really need them.